Chris Murphy didn't argue policy. He accused Kristi Noem of law-breaking. In plain terms, he said DHS is out of control, illegally spending money, ignoring Congress, and stripping people of rights it does not have the power to touch.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Madam Secretary, thank you for being here. I'm sorry that I missed your call yesterday. I look forward to working closely with you. I say this with seriousness and respect, but your department is out of control. You are spending like you don't have a budget. You're on the verge of running out of money for the fiscal year. You are illegally refusing to spend funds that have been authorized by this Congress and appropriated by this committee. You are ignoring the immigration laws of this nation, implementing a brand new immigration system that you have invented that has little relation to the statutes that you are required, that you are commanded to follow, as spelled out in your oath of office. You are routinely violating the rights of immigrants who may not be citizens, but whether you like it or not, they have constitutional and statutory rights when they reside in the United States. Your agency acts as if laws don't matter, as if the election gave you some mandate to violate the Constitution and the laws passed by this Congress. It did not give you that mandate. You act as if your disagreement with the law, or even the public's disagreement with the law, is relevant and gives you the ability to create your own law. It does not give you that ability. Let's start with your spending. You are on track to trigger the Anti-Deficiency Act. That means you are going to spend more money than you have been allocated by Congress. This is a rare occurrence, and it is wildly illegal. Your agency will be broke by July, over 2 months before the end of the fiscal year. You may not think that Congress has provided enough money to ICE, but the Constitution and the federal law does not allow you to spend more money than you have been given or to invent money. And this obsession with spending at the border, as the chairwoman mentioned, has left the country unprotected elsewhere. The security threats to the United States are higher, not lower, than when Trump came to office. To fund the border, you have illegally gutted spending for cybersecurity. As we speak, Russian and Chinese hackers are having a field day attacking our nation. You've withdrawn funds for disaster prevention. Storms are going to kill more people in this country because of your illegal withholding of these funds. Your myopia about the border, fueled by President Trump's prejudice against people who speak a different language, has shattered many of this country's most important defenses. Now let's talk about the impoundments. When Congress appropriates funds for a specific purpose, the administration has no discretion as to whether to spend or not spend that money unless you go through a very specific process with this committee. Let me give you two of many instances of this illegal impoundment. The first is the Shelter and Services Program. Senator Britt may want to zero that account out, but that account is funded, and it was funded in a bipartisan way. You don't like the program. Your policy is to treat migrants badly. I think that's abhorrent, but it doesn't matter that you don't like the program. You cannot cancel spending in this program, and you cannot use the funds as you have to fund other things, like ICE. You have also canceled citizenship and integration grants, which help lawful permanent residents become citizens, helping them take the citizenship test. I know your goal is to try to make life as hard as possible for immigrants, but that goal is not broadly shared by the American public. That's why Congress, in a bipartisan way, for decades, has funded this program to help immigrants in this country become citizens. Now let's talk about why encounters at the southern border are down so much. This is clearly going to be your primary talking point today. You will tell us that it represents a success. But the primary reason why encounters are down is because you are brazenly violating the law every hour of every day. You are refusing to allow people showing up at the southern border to apply for asylum. I acknowledge that you don't believe that people should be able to apply for asylum, but you don't get to choose that. The White House doesn't get to choose that. The law requires you to process people who are showing up at the border and who claim asylum. Why? Because our asylum law is a bipartisan commitment, an effort to correct for our nation's unconscionable decision to deny entry to Jews to this country who were being hunted and killed by the Nazis. Our nation, Republicans and Democrats, decided, wrote it into law, that we would not repeat that horror ever again, and thus we would allow for people who were fleeing terror and torture to come here, arrive at the border, and make a case for asylum. Finally, let's talk about these disappearances. In an autocratic society, people who the regime does not like are people who are protesting the regime. They are just often picked up off the street, spirited away, sometimes to open-ended detention, sometimes they're never seen again. What you are doing, both the individuals who have legal rights to stay here, like Kilmar Abrego Garcia, or students who are just protesting Trump's policies, is immoral. And to follow the theme, it is illegal. You have no right to deport a student visa holder with no due process, simply because they have spoken in a way that offends the president. You can't remove migrants who a court has given humanitarian protection from removal. Now, reports suggest that you are planning to remove immigrants with no due process and send them to prisons in Libya. Libya is in the middle of a civil war. It is subject to a level 4 travel advisory, meaning we tell American citizens never to travel to Libya. We don't have an embassy there because it is not safe for our diplomats. Sending migrants with pending asylum claims into a war zone
What sounded like a routine Senate opening statement quickly turned into one of the most serious warnings Congress has issued to the Department of Homeland Security in years. Senator Chris Murphy did not accuse Secretary Kristi Noem of policy disagreements or bad judgment. He accused her department of operating outside the law, outside the budget, and outside the Constitution. This was not rhetorical heat. It was a detailed charge sheet about money, authority, and rights, and why those guardrails exist in the first place. If you want clearer breakdowns like this that go beyond the soundbite, make sure to subscribe. At the center of Murphy's argument is something most Americans never hear about: the Anti-Deficiency Act. It is one of the most basic rules of government. Agencies cannot spend money they do not have, and they cannot invent money Congress did not approve. Murphy says DHS is on track to do exactly that, running out of funds months before the fiscal year ends while continuing to spend at accelerated levels. That matters because when one agency ignores spending limits, it does not just create chaos internally, it weakens Congress itself. The power of the purse is how lawmakers control executive overreach, and when that power is ignored, oversight becomes performative instead of real. If you want reporting that explains why process matters as much as politics, subscribe to the channel. Murphy then moves from overspending to impoundment, a word that sounds technical but carries huge constitutional weight. Congress does not appropriate money as a suggestion. When lawmakers fund a program, the executive branch is legally required to carry it out, unless it formally asks Congress for permission not to. Murphy says DHS has done the opposite, quietly withholding funds for migrant shelter services, citizenship preparation, cybersecurity, and disaster prevention, then redirecting money toward border enforcement. The consequence is not abstract. It means weaker defenses against foreign hackers, less preparation for deadly storms, and fewer lawful immigrants becoming citizens, all because the administration does not like programs Congress approved. If this kind of accountability reporting matters to you, don't forget to subscribe. The sharpest moment comes when Murphy addresses the administration's claim of success at the southern border. Border encounters are down, but Murphy argues the reason is not enforcement brilliance, it is illegal exclusion. Under U.S. law, anyone who reaches the border has the right to apply for asylum. That is not optional, and it is not a loophole. It is a bipartisan commitment born from one of America's darkest moral failures, turning away people fleeing genocide during World War II. Murphy's warning is blunt. Reducing encounters by refusing to follow asylum law is not enforcement, it is erasure of the law itself. If you want context that connects today's headlines to historical consequences, make sure you subscribe. Finally, Murphy raises the most chilling concern, which he describes as disappearances. Deporting people with pending legal protections, targeting student visa holders for speech, and reports of sending migrants to unstable war zones without due process are not just immigration issues, they are rule of law issues. Murphy draws a line between democratic governance and authoritarian behavior, where the state punishes people not for crimes, but for who they are or what they say. His closing point is the most important. None of this should be partisan. Budgets, constitutional rights, and lawful process are the foundation of democracy, and once they are treated as optional, the damage may not be reversible.
If you want more reporting that cuts through party labels and focuses on democratic accountability, subscribe now and stay informed.